This is your in-depth briefing on the reports, reactions, and wider context surrounding an alleged coup plot in Nigeria, reports that have set off a wave of arrests, raids, official denials, and a major reshuffle of the country's military leadership. In this article I will trace the timeline of events as reported by multiple outlets, explain who the main actors are, summarize official statements and denials, lay out the investigative leads that journalists have reported, and explore what the developments may mean for Nigeria's security and politics. This report draws on reporting from international and Nigerian news organizations, including Sahara Reporters, Punch, Premium Times, Reuters, The Associated Press, and Al Jazeera. How the story began, arrest and initial military account. According to multiple Nigerian media reports first published in mid-October 2025, at least 16 serving military officers were detained by the armed forces, in what some outlets described as an intelligence operation. Those detained were said to include officers at ranks ranging from captain through to brigadier general. The initial public account from the defense headquarters was that officers had been arrested during a routine military exercise on allegations of indiscipline and breaches of service regulations. Within days, other outlets, most prominently Sahara Reporters, published a substantially different account. Sahara detailed that the detained officers were being held by the Defense Intelligence Agency and suggested their arrests were linked to an alleged plan to remove the president from office. Those reports described the detentions as secretive, saying some officers had been held for weeks in an undisclosed facility and that families had not been informed. Premium Times and Sahara Reporters led early coverage of the detention details. So from the outset, two narratives ran side by side, an official, disciplinary explanation, and allegations from investigative outlets that the detentions were connected to an attempted coup. That divergence, and the secrecy around the detentions, elevated public concern and led analysts to ask why only a small number of officers were singled out if indiscipline was widespread, and why intelligence services, rather than normal military disciplinary channels, were involved. The reporting on a money trail and high-profile raids. Reporting later in October widened the scope of the story. Several outlets, citing sources and unnamed investigators, said the inquiry had moved beyond simply detentions to include raids on properties linked to some political figures and searches for financial links. Notably, multiple news sites reported that a special military operation swept through the Abuja residence of a former federal minister, Timipa Silva. Those reports said soldiers were present at the home, that Mr. Silva was not at home at the time, and that his brother and others present were detained for questioning. Punch and other outlets also reported investigators were tracing transfers of significant sums into accounts connected to some of the individuals named in reporting. Punch described the arrest and questioning of a managing director of a federal agency over a transfer said to have gone into an account linked with Mr. Silva, a transfer that investigators were reported to be examining for possible links to the alleged plot. That reporting used cautious language, alleged and under investigation, and the story stressed that inquiries were ongoing. At this stage, the coverage was heavily based on unnamed sources inside security services and on investigators. Official spokespeople for the military and presidency tended to deny or downplay the coup angle while acknowledging inquiries into discipline and possible misconduct. The mixed signals, arrest and intelligence detentions on one hand, and public denials on the other, contributed to confusion and speculation. The national security shake-up, appointments and timing. On October 24, 2025, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu announced a sweeping change of the nation's top military leadership. New service chiefs for the Army, Navy, and Air Force were appointed, and a new Chief of Defense Staff was named. International outlets including Reuters, The Associated Press, and Al Jazeera reported the reshuffle and noted that the move came against the backdrop of the earlier detentions and the reporting of a foiled coup attempt. Government statements framed the changes as part of an effort to strengthen Nigeria's national security architecture. Observers noted the timing. The appointments followed weeks of reporting about the detained officers and the alleged plot. Some analysts and international coverage speculated the reshuffle could be aimed at consolidating civilian control, calming tensions inside the armed forces, or both. Others suggested it may reflect the administration's desire for a fresh start amid persistent security challenges across the country, including insurgency and rising criminal violence. It is important to note, official statements accompanying the shakeup did not acknowledge any successful coup attempt. Instead, the presidency emphasized ongoing security challenges and the need to improve coordination and leadership within the armed forces. Still, for many Nigerians and outside observers, the sequence of detentions, secretive investigations, raids, and rapid leadership changes raised questions about the stability of civil-military relations in the country. What the reporters and analysts say: motives, methods, and missing pieces. First, ambiguity of motives. Reporters asked why alleged indiscipline would lead only to the arrest of a small cohort of officers if it were widespread, and why those officers would be handed to intelligence agencies rather than to normal disciplinary processes. That ambiguity, critics say, fuels the theory that the detentions were linked to a political or national security investigation rather than routine military discipline. Second, the role of information leaks and secrecy. The reporting has been driven largely by leaks to investigative media and by unnamed sources. Families reportedly said they were kept in the dark about their relatives' whereabouts, that secrecy deepened the controversy and prompted calls for clarity from human rights and legal observers. Third, financial forensics. Multiple stories reference investigators tracing suspicious transfers, including reports that funds were moved into bank accounts linked to persons of interest. These leads, if substantiated, could form part of a prosecutable case. But as of the latest reporting, those financial traces were described as being examined rather than as conclusive evidence of wrongdoing. Fourth, the political context. Nigeria's political landscape has been tense, shaped by elections, regional separatist movements, and security crisis. In such an environment, rumors of plots or coups attract particular attention. Analysts warn that unverified reporting, if amplified without corroboration, can inflame tensions. At the same time, when state actions are secretive, suspicion can easily take root. Taken together, these points underline why independent verification and due process are critical. Arrests, detentions, and financial investigations deserve transparent legal handling, both to protect the rights of those accused and to preserve public trust in institutions. Journalistic outlets emphasize that their reporting is based largely on sources inside the security services and on official statements that are themselves sometimes inconsistent. Official responses and denials. The Defense Headquarters has publicly maintained that the action taken in early October was linked to indiscipline and breaches of military regulations, language that frames the detentions as professional disciplinary matters rather than a political plot. The military's official statements, circulated through press offices and carried by mainstream outlets, stressed that investigations were ongoing. Meanwhile, the presidency's formal communications around the later appointments emphasized strengthening national security capabilities, without admitting the existence of a successful coup attempt. International reporting quoted official statements about the reshuffle being aimed at improved performance against insurgency and criminal networks. At the same time, outlets reporting the alleged intelligence detentions maintain their accounts. They point to sources within the security community who claim the detentions were intelligence operations, not standard disciplinary cases. That conflict of narratives, official denials on one side, investigative accounts on the other, remains unresolved in public reporting. Legal, human rights, and regional implications. The detentions and secrecy raise immediate legal and human rights questions. Under both Nigerian law and international human rights standards, suspects ordinarily have the right to known charges, legal counsel, and timely access to judicial processes. Extended secret detentions, if confirmed, risk violating those principles and could trigger legal challenges or domestic outcry. Human rights organizations and legal experts often call for transparent investigations and for authorities to present evidence in court where appropriate. Regionally, Nigeria is a key democratic anchor in West Africa. The West African region has seen several military takeovers in recent years, and democratic backsliding or instability in Nigeria could have wider repercussions. International partners and institutions watching these developments will likely press for clarity and for adherence to lawful process. At the same time, governments balancing security cooperation, especially counterinsurgency support, with democratic norms must decide how best to engage when allegations of internal political conspiracies arise. For anyone following this story, here are the key verification points to watch. Formal charges or court filings. If authorities move from detention to formal charges in open court, the public record will begin to clarify the legal basis of the arrest. Watch for any indictments, charge sheets, or open court appearances. Independent confirmation of raids and detentions. Multiple independent confirmations, for example, court documents, statements from families with verifiable identities, or on-the-record statements from security agencies, would strengthen the factual basis of allegations. Sahara reporters and local outlets have provided early reporting. More corroboration would help. Result of financial investigations. If financial forensics reveal clear money trails connected to wrongdoing, prosecutors may have stronger grounds for charges. Right now, reporting indicates financial traces are under review but not yet conclusive. Government transparency and public messaging. Changes in how the defense headquarters and the presidency communicate, for instance, clearer acknowledgement of investigations or the release of evidence, would shape public confidence. The October 24 reshuffle is a significant policy move. How the new service chiefs engage with transparency will matter. Possible scenarios include: A. Authorities produce evidence and pursue prosecutions. B. The matter remains opaque, fueling longer-term institutional mistrust. Or C. Political negotiations and behind-the-scenes settlements lead to limited public fallout. Each path carries different risks for Nigeria's politics and security. Across Nigeria, reactions have been mixed. For some, any suggestion of a coup, even a foiled one, is alarming and underscores deep institutional stresses. For others, accusations can appear politicized or weaponized in a heated political environment. Analysts interviewed by international outlets warn that secrecy and rumor can be destabilizing. Meanwhile, supporters of the government emphasize the need to uphold the chain of command and to deal with indiscipline within the forces to maintain stability. Security scholars note that a healthy civil-military relationship depends on predictable legal norms, transparency in the application of discipline, and avenues for legitimate grievance redress. When those mechanisms appear weak, the risk of politicized conflict within the military increases. That is why many observers emphasize the importance of clear, public processes in the handling of these allegations. Short summary: what we know, and what remains unknown. Multiple reputable outlets report that 16 military officers were detained in early October. The military's public line has described actions as disciplinary. Investigative outlets say the Defense Intelligence Agency detained the officers in relation to an alleged coup plan. Subsequent reporting describes raids on the Abuja residence of a prominent former minister and follow-up financial inquiries into transfers linked to named individuals. These reports remain based largely on unnamed sources and ongoing investigations. Days later, President Tinubu announced a major reshuffle of the service chiefs. International reporting connected the timing of the reshuffle to the broader environment of security concerns and the reporting on the detentions. What remains unknown, and what will determine the long-term narrative, are whether authorities will present verifiable, open evidence, whether suspects will be charged in court, and whether transparency will increase as investigations proceed. We will continue to monitor official releases from the Nigerian Defense Headquarters, statements from the presidency. This matter goes beyond headlines. It tests the institutions that underpin democratic life, trust in the military, adherence to rule of law, and the public's right to know. Whether the allegations prove to be a foiled plot, a mischaracterized disciplinary action, or something else entirely, the path forward must be guided by facts and by transparent legal process. Thank you for listening. If you found this briefing useful, like and share, and subscribe for follow-up reports.